Good morning and welcome to another edition of DFS Today. This is your Sunday, February 6th edition. I'll be your host today, Santino Cacone, and we have a wonderful 8-game Sunday schedule broken up into 2 slates. We'll get right to it. 3 games on the first docket, all starting at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then we have 5 games in the later docket. 3 starting at 6 p.m., 1 at 7, and then a late game at 9. Before we jump into everything, I want to let everybody know that we have a brand new daily sports fantasy partner at Sports Ethos. That is Thrive Fantasy. Prop up with Thrive Fantasy on their mobile app or at thrivefantasy.com. Use code ETHOS when you sign up to get a 100% deposit match bonus on your first deposit up to $100, plus either 2 or 4 free game tickets to play. Pick player props on the biggest names playing every night. Score points when your props hit, and the players with the most points win a share of the nightly prize money. So check it out. It is awesome. You'll definitely start to get hooked, especially if you're big on DFS as is. You'll be playing those player props. All right, first game on the docket, we have the Philadelphia 76ers taking on the Chicago Bulls in Chicago. We have a 219.5 game total, and the Sixers are -1 point road favorites. On the injury report, we have Lonzo Ball, Alex Caruso, Derrick Jones Jr., Patrick Williams, Shake Milton, Paul Reed, Ben Simmons, Jaden Springer all out. We have Furkan Korkmaz, Matisse Thybulle, Zach LaVine, Kobe White as questionable. We'll start with the Sixers. And some of this is going to hinge on Korkmaz and Thybulle, but if both of those two guys miss, or at least one of them miss, Danny Green and Niang become very valuable plays at 3,400 and 3,300 respectively. Become pump plays that could see 30-plus minutes in this one. So keep an eye on Korkmaz and Thybulle's availability. If one of them is to miss, say it's Korkmaz, probably doesn't change too much on the other two, but if Thybulle misses, Korkmaz becomes playable himself at 48. But I prefer Niang and Danny Green there. I think they could see 30 minutes. Seth Curry at 5K is an interesting option for me. He hasn't been playing great, dealing with multiple injuries, but 5K is just a very cheap price tag for him to bring back value here. Seeing about 36 minutes or so. Every time he's played, he's at least seen 32 minutes the last whatever game, so he's definitely going to be there in a lot. And this will be a good matchup with the backcourt injured in Chicago. That said, Tyrese Maxey becomes more in play for me at 7,400 because of the injuries, and Joel Embiid is Joel Embiid. Very great matchup there. So I'm looking at Embiid, more Maxey, Curry, and then depending on the availability, there's some value to be had there. On the other side of the ball, 2 guards with questionable values as well. Zach LaVine, Kobe White, not sure if they're going to play. They didn't play. They both sat Friday's game, so they might sit this one. If they do sit out, that means Ayo becomes very much in play for me at 6,200. He had 14 assists in the last game, getting a lot of extra responsibility. DeMar DeRozan is my preferred play over Vooch. And LaVine, even if LaVine does play. But if LaVine misses, Kobe White misses, DeRozan is the guy that I really like here, along with Ayo. And then Javonte Green at 4,400. Very solid play. Whether everybody plays or not, he's going to be getting run. And he's been putting up value since he's come back. So rock solid value play there. Maybe not huge upside, but value to be had on a small slate at 4,400. I like that there. Kobe White is intriguing to me if Zach LaVine doesn't play, and he does play. But I'll probably just go to Ayo there out of the 2 or pay down for Javonte Green. All right, jumping on to the next game, we have the Brooklyn Nets taking on the Denver Nuggets. We have a 229.5 game total, and the Nuggets are 5.5 point home favorites. We have LaMarcus Aldridge, David Duke, Kevin Durant, Joe Harris, Paul Millsap, Vlatko Cancar, Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr. all out. Austin Rivers, Aaron Gordon as probable, and James Harden, Nick Claxton as questionable. Claxton came back and got hurt in the last game, missed the rest of the game. I would expect him to miss this. James Harden, don't know. Truly up in the air. I mean, they could rest him if they're very serious. on trading him, which I don't know how serious they are, but if they get the right package, yeah, they could rest him here. Hamstring injuries are tricky, so keep an eye on that. But we'll start with the Nets anyway. They are the away team, and a lot of it hinges on James Harden. If he does miss, Kyrie Irving, who shot only 6 of 20 from the last game and only put up 28 in fantasy points, and then not even 25 the game before that. He's still in play here on this road trip without a James Harden potentially getting up 20-plus shots. Yeah, in a good matchup. Yep, Kyrie Irving at 10-2 would still be in play. If Harden does make it, probably not going to have much exposure to Kyrie. Probably not as much as Harden either, even though he's walking. He's putting up numbers, barely giving a ton of effort there. But that hamstring injury is no joke, and he hurt it last year. So I'm probably going to lean away from both of them if they both play. If no Harden, Kyrie becomes in play. Cam Thomas jumps back in play here. Even Bembry at 3,800 is an option. In the front court, all of James Johnson, Sharp, and Griffin are in play. I don't expect Claxton to play, so I think all these guys are going to get some minutes here. We saw Sharp start handful of games without Aldridge and Claxton in there before. He could go to start again, especially since they're going up against Jokic. Going to be people taking a lot of fouls here. Blake Griffin, anytime he's been given the chance, he's decently produced, and he might be the number 2 option, honestly, on this team if Harden doesn't play. So he's in play here as well. I mentioned James Johnson. He's getting a lot of run. So I think regardless, he's going to be getting run here. Not the greatest of options, but only 3,600. This team went from 3 superstars to possibly 1 in this game, and then even Aldridge is out and Claxton. There's just some value to be had here. All right, jumping on to the other side of the ball, we have the Denver Nuggets. Jokic, somewhat like Embiid, they're both just churning out value here. It's going to be another fantastic matchup for them. We're going to either have Daron Sharp, James Johnson, or Blake Griffin trying to guard him. All 3 of those people sadly cannot guard him, so it's going to be a fantastic position for him. Will Barton at 6,300 is a decent mid-tier price range. We saw Aaron Gordon miss a game there. We saw Austin Rivers. They're both probable in this one. They should both be back, but Will Barton becomes the number 2 option here. I prefer him over Aaron Gordon, who's slightly cheaper, who had himself a couple big games as well a week or 2 ago. And then Monte Morris at 5,200. The Nets, this is a high-priced, a high-totaled game. The Nets give up a lot of points, especially at opposing backcourts. Monte Morris can find himself in decent position here. And that's probably it. Maybe an Austin Rivers if he's going to draw the start, but him and Bryn Forbes are kind of teetering on back and forth there, so I'm just going to leave both of them alone and go after the people I mentioned. All right, jumping on over to the last game in the first docket. We have the Detroit Pistons taking on the Minnesota Timberwolves again at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we have a 230 game total, and the Wolves are 11.5-point home favorites. On the injury report, we have Luka Garza, Josh Jackson, Saban Lee, Pickett, all out. And then we have Okogie, Balmero, questionable, and Cade Cunningham, questionable, and Pat Bev, D'Lo as probable. We'll start with the Pistons side of the ball. They are the away team. And a lot of this hinges on Cunningham's availability. He's questionable right now. Missed the last game. Was missing a couple with that hip. So keep an eye on that. If he does play, I think this is a pretty good spot for him. He's 8,300. I probably won't have as much exposure. We have some high-priced guys on the 2 games in front of us. So probably won't have a ton of exposure to him, but I think it's a decent price tag if he's ready to go a full allotment of minutes. If he's not, then it becomes very interesting. We know Corey Joseph is just a fan favorite, coach favorite here, and at only 4,200, he's probably going to play 25 to 35 minutes in this one. So that's definitely something to keep an eye on. We can like that there. Frank Jackson gets a big boost at only 3,600. In the last 3 games, he has 14, 25, and 6 points, 14, 14, and 7 shots. So it's a little volatile, but he does have the ability to take a bunch of shots and make a bunch of shots. And against Minnesota a couple games ago, he put up 25 actual points, 3 boards, 3 assists. So he gets a big boost here. If Cade Cunningham is out, even if he's in, he's still a decent option as a very punt play, but I prefer him to a Killian Hayes, who had a better game last game. Diallo at 5K. If Cunningham is out, he played 28 minutes in the last one, took 17 shots. That's probably the high mark of what he will do for you. 42 fantasy points, but there's still some possibility to be had if Cunningham's out. If Cunningham is in, not so much Kojo. Diallo's out. I'll still take a look at Frank Jackson because of the cheap price tag and the ability for him to go up. But I'm looking more towards like a Jeremy Grant. Oh, I was calling his brother at 6,800 and the Sadiq Pay because those two will have the volume there coming back from their injuries. And even a Kelly Olynyk at 4,700. He's been playing minutes in the teens, but if he can get to 25, 26 minutes there, then we know that he can always bring back value there. So I'll keep an eye on that. And I do like Grant. I think Bay is solid, and Frank Jackson where it'd be going. If Cade Cunningham is in, probably mostly looking at Jackson, and then I'll take a chance on a Bay there. All right, on the other side of the ball, this is a big spread and the highest game total of the night. We're looking at starting at the top here at Towns. If you want a big discount on the two other superstar centers that are on the slate, Towns makes sense. Going to be an awesome matchup for him. Easily, he can put up some numbers here. If you do have the money, which I think there's enough value too, I would just prefer to pay for the safeness of the other two guys. But that is a big 2K difference between those two. If you don't have him, Anthony Edwards does make some sense at 8-4. It's going to be just a really good matchup. He took 21 shots against these guys last game, only made 9, 2 of 9 from 3. Didn't do really much facilitating, didn't get many rebounds, only had 1 stock. He still had 25 actual points. I think you put some extra peripheral numbers around there, and that's a pretty big game. And I can expect a little more here too. D'Lo, probably just going to leave him alone. He hasn't played in a little bit. Looks like he will be available for this one, but over a week off, probably won't be rushed into anything significant, especially playing a Pistons team. So I don't think we have to rush there. Pat Bev gets his value hit with the return of D'Lo. So 5,200. You could take a chance on him, but I don't think the upside's there. I'll leave him alone. Everybody else does too, like a Prince, Beasley, all these guys that have been teetering on the line. The rotation is going to change up a little bit here. So I'm probably just going to stay with Edwards. Maybe take Towns for the discount on the other two centers. And that's likely it for now. If you think this game is going to be a blowout, maybe you can take a Beasley chance, McDaniels chance, even a Prince. But I think that Prince is a little too high. Beasley and McDaniels would be more in my price range, or Noel over McDaniels for me. All right, let's jump on to the main slate. The slate that starts at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have 3 at 6 p.m., 1 at 7, 1 at 9. As mentioned before, first game on the docket, Indiana Pacers taking on the Cleveland Cavaliers. We have a 216.5 game total, and the Cavs are 5.5 point home favorites. On the injury report, we have Isaiah Jackson, TJ McConnell, Miles Turner, TJ Warren, all out. Colin Sexton, Ricky Rubio, Lauri Markkanen, all out. And we have Garland, Goga, Brogdon, Sabonis, all questionable for this one. We'll start with the Pacers. And yeah, we have 3 guys that are questionable here. Sabonis obviously being the big one. Goga also in the front court. And then Brogdon. If Brogdon does play, it would put a damper on LeVert, who had himself a monster game the other night. Probably won't go on LeVert either way against this Cleveland defense, especially if Garland's back. The defense good. I don't expect another 42 fantasy or 42 actual points, or even 42 fantasy points. So I probably won't go to him at that 9.3 price tag. If Sabonis plays, that dings him up a little bit more as well. And then Goga. So Sabonis and Goga are directly affecting Terry Taylor's value right here. I think he's going to play regardless, but obviously he's averaging 15 rebounds and over 20 or 22.5 points in his last 2 games, where he played 37 and 38 minutes. Been fantastic. 52 fantasy points and 46.5 fantasy points. I definitely want to play him. If these 2 guys are out, 5,500 is just too cheap. And even against these 2 big towers that he's going to be playing against, and then Kevin Love coming off the bench, I still think he can get double-digit rebounds and maybe not another 20-10, but the guy's been incredible. So I like him at 55 if there's no Goga, if there's no Sabonis. Even if there is a Goga, even if there is Sabonis, I think I'll still play him too. I think he might start at shooting guard. I just think the rebounds might be curbed a little bit there. Sabonis, I'm going to leave off. Goga, I'm going to leave off. Brogdon, I'm going to leave off. LeVert, if these guys are playing, I'm going to leave him off. Taylor is the guy that I really like here. And then depending on what happens with the rest of the guys, then we could look for value again, like a Washington, even Jeremy Lamb, Holiday, Brissett. A lot of value to be go around against if everybody's still out. On the Cleveland side of the ball, some of it hinges on Darius Garland. We have Lauri Markkanen. I don't think he's going to be back anytime soon. They're resuming him. For some reason, he shows questionable, so hopefully people pick him on this slate, but he's not going to be playing today. Darius Garland isn't a great matchup if he's ready to go, and he can play a full complement of minutes. He's under 9K now. He's only 8.8. That's good for us. He hasn't played in nearly a week. I think today will be a week, so keep an eye on his limit and what he'll do. But if he is out, Brandon Goodwin, Cedi Osman, Rajon Rondo have been running the point guard position here. Goodwin would be the one of the three that I'd be looking at. 5'4". He's been bringing back value in his spot. Cedi can, but he's really just struggled the last couple games, especially last game. He only played 15 minutes. It was 2 of 8 from the field. In the last 3 games since Garland went down, he's 3 of 16, 5 of 12, and 2 of 8 from the field. Just really poor overall. Even though he had a 12-point or 13-point game in one of them and 12-assist game in the other, just hasn't clicked. So probably not going to have any exposure to him, though this matchup is good. Goodwin has shown, though, that he has the higher ability here. Isaac Okoro could be a guy you can take a chance on at 4K if there's no Garland. And then in the front court, depending on who's actually in the front court for Indiana, there might be a lot of opportunity for Jared Allen and Evan Mobley. As good as Terry Taylor has been, he's still a 6'5" shooting guard. So the height advantage and the size advantage could come into very big play for those two guys. So keep an eye on the injury report, and that's where I'll be going. Here on the other 6 o'clock game, one of the other 6 o'clock games, we have the Atlanta Hawks taking on the Dallas Mavericks in Dallas. We have a 219.5 game total, and the Mavs are 2.5 point home favorites. Oof. On the injury report, we have, let's say this. Sterling Brown, Tim Hardaway Jr., Kristaps Porzingis, Jalen Johnson, Sharif Cooper, all out. John Collins, Danilo Gallinari, Lou Williams, and Maxi Kleber, all questionable. We'll start with the Hawks. They are the away team. Anytime Trey and Luka go at it, it's going to be a fun matchup. Trey has been just putting up fantasy numbers the last games. Last 3 games, nothing under 50 points. He's an option, though the Mavs defense is really solid. But at 10-1, it's not an expensive guy to probably put up 50 points just on pure volume alone. Even when he's not shooting the ball particularly well, he's still getting the entire volume. A couple games ago against Boston, about a little over a week ago, shot 8 of 25 from the field. Was poor, 2 of 9 from 3, still put up 42 fantasy points just on sheer volume alone. And we know that he's going to have the ball in his hands so much, whether it's creating or shooting, or just having it in his hands. We know that his usage is insane. So 10-1 is pretty solid here, even in a tough matchup. John Collins is going to be interesting if he misses, and Gallinari misses. How are they going to run this rotation? Will they start Bogdanovich, Hunter, Herter all together? Will Okongwu and Capella play more minutes together? These are some things that we'll have to keep an eye on. Lou Williams is also questionable, so opens up DeLone Wright as a backup both guard positions a little bit more, but a lot to keep an eye on if John Collins doesn't play and Gallinari doesn't play, because that could change the whole rotation. And with that said, I would take a chance on Okongwu here. Hopefully getting more minutes. Maybe these two guys do play together a little bit and see how that feels without Collins. And at 3,700, I'll take some shots at that. Maybe Luke Carrot, Timothy Labubu Cabaret gets in the starting lineup possibly. I don't know. But I keep an eye on that. Okongwu would be a guy I'm taking a chance on. Herter possibly if there's no Collins. And then even Bogdanovich at 5,500. But that all depends on John Collins' availability. If Collins does play, I think he's in a solid spot as well. Only 6,600. Dallas is missing Porzingis. Front court is an issue for them, and he could take advantage of that. And the one game he played against the Hawks, he did put up nearly 41 fantasy points as well. On the other side of the ball, we don't have Porzingis again. Kleba is questionable, so Dwight Powell becomes interesting to me. So does Marquise Chris. Maybe they both start in the front court without Kleba there. So keep an eye on that if Kleba doesn't play. If Kleba does play, it's a decent spot for him at only 4,200. But I honestly kind of prefer that he doesn't, and I'll take a shot at Powell and Chris there at 37 and 3,300 as pure punt plays. Luka Doncic going to be 12K in this one, but great matchup. He only had he was 6 of 17 in his lone meeting against Atlanta earlier this year, and still had 44 fantasy points because he put up a near triple double. I think that's doable again. 12K. I don't mind running it back. Trey and Luka right here, both going to be in solid spots. Outside of that, not really interested in Brunson a ton. Though 6,500 is not a bad price tag for him. Just not in love with it. And I don't really want to look at much else. Maybe a Dorian Finney-Smith. If Kleba does miss, maybe he does start at power forward. They move everybody down. They put Bullock there. Small forward again. Chris or Powell start at power forward. So maybe I'll take a shot at Finney-Smith at 4,500, but I don't love a lot of the price tags. All right, jumping on over to the last game at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have the Boston Celtics taking on the Orlando Magic. On the injury report or game total, we have 217.5. The Celtics are 7.5 point road favorites. The Magic are one of two teams with the Milwaukee Bucks that are on the back end of a back-to-back, so we don't have an official injury report for them as of yet, but we can use what was there last night. And the only team that's on the front end of a back-to-back is the Chicago Bulls, which was the first game of the docket. We'll start with the injury report for the Celtics. We have Bol, PJ Dozier are the only two guys that of relevance there. On Orlando, we have the usuals. RJ Hampton didn't play. Elijah. I said Elijah. Ejuan Moore, Jonathan Isaac, MCW, Markelle Fultz, all out. And the last one, and we'll see if anything changes here. Boston side of the ball, Tatum, Brown, Rob Williams, Smart. Those are the guys. I don't really care about any of the value here. I think we have enough already, even in 2 games that we can look at there. I'll stick right up to the top. I think Smart's going to be in a solid spot here. At only 5,500, he's averaging 33 fantasy points against the Magic in 2 games against them in 38 minutes. So a lot to like here. He's at his 2 games against Orlando. He's averaging 12.5 points, 5.5 boards, 5.5 assists, and 2.5 total stocks. So really like Marcus Smart, a very solid, lower priced mid-tier play. Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, both in very good spots. In 2 games against Orlando, Brown is averaging nearly 60 fantasy points. In 1 game against Orlando, Tatum has 31. Don't expect Tatum to not be good in this one, but I do prefer Brown at a slightly cheaper price tag. It's just a very good matchup for both of them at 9,200. If this game can stay competitive with Orlando being on the back end of a back-to-back, we have ourselves a very, very big ceiling for one and or both of these guys. Same with Rob Will, 7,500. Even though they play big and the Magic do, he's still going to be in a solid spot. I do prefer the 2 forwards instead of him and Marcus Smart, but I won't rule him out there as of yet. All right, jumping on to the other side of the ball, and we'll have to see about an injury report, see if anything changes, but we'll just assume that everybody is still in play on the back end of a back-to-back. That said, they didn't have the greatest of games in the last one. Lost by 20 points, got just steamrolled by Memphis. Don't really count that one just because it was a blowout pretty much from start to finish. Carter Jr., Cole Anthony, Jalen Suggs, not really looking at much here. I think the matchup is pretty solid. If I had to pick one of those 3, probably Suggs, but I'm totally not confident about it. I do like a little cheaper of the guys here. And Harris, Okiki, even Bamba. Franz Wagner is probably the highest guy that I'll price guy that I'll go up to in this matchup. Just not in love with it. Carter had himself two solid games against Boston, 6-9. You can look there, but I'm probably gonna look away there and go more towards Bamba if he's in. If Bamba is out, then yes, Wendell Carter Jr. I do like, and then Chuma Okeke becomes very much more intriguing to me, and as does Gary Harris. But those are the three guys that I'm looking at the most here. All right, jumping on over to the next game, we have the New Orleans Pelicans taking on the Houston Rockets. We have a 232 game total, 232 and a half game total. My apologies, which is the highest of the entire day. And then the Pelicans are 4.5 point road favorites. On the injury report, we have Usman Garuba, Willie Hernangomez, Kyra Lewis, Didi Lazauda, Garrett Temple, Zion Williamson, all out, and Josh Hart as questionable. We'll start with the Pelicans. Josh Hart, got to keep an eye on that. If he does play and he's ready to go, his normal allotment of minutes, which is about 33, he's averaging on the season. I really like him in this game. I think double-digit rebounds is close, 7 to 12, I would say. 3 to 5 assists would be nice, and a couple steals here. I think 35 points is well within reason with some upside here. I really like Josh Hart if he's ready to go, even though Brandon Ingram is back. Speaking of Brandon Ingram, came back in the last one, played 38 minutes, and he played 32 minutes a couple days before that, then 38 minutes. Both good. He put up 93 fantasy points in 2 games. I think there is some upside for him to hit value here. The matchup is going to be really good. He had 58 fantasy points in his lone meeting against Houston, 40 actual points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, a couple stocks. I think another repeat performance could be had. He's one of the better, higher-priced plays that isn't super pricey. At only $8,700, the upside is very big here. And if Josh Hart misses, even more for him. J-Val, I do prefer him to J-Val, who's only a couple $100 cheaper. And I think we have some solid center options already around the slate. Herb Jones, Devontae Graham, Jackson Hayes, Nickeil Alexander-Walker. These guys are going to be directly tied to Josh Hart's value, or Josh Hart's playing status. I think if Josh Hart doesn't play, especially without Garrett Temple, another guy in the rotation, these guys all get a little bit of a bump. I do prefer Herb of the crew, and outside of Herb, Jackson Hayes possibly could be getting another start. He played 33 minutes in the last one, 26 in before that, and both those games had Brandon Ingram. So very intriguing to keep him around here. 5K is a little more expensive than I would like, but just another option there if Josh Hart does miss. Then you have Nickeil Alexander-Walker. He's only an option if Josh Hart misses. Don't really care for him if Josh Hart is in, and even if he does miss, he's the least of the 4 that I would go for here. Jumping on to the other side of the ball, we have really nobody on the injury report, so we'll be looking at this. Kevin Porter Jr. did leave the last one. He had with an illness. He only played 11 minutes, but he's not listed on the injury report now. Don't know if it was a clerical error, but we'll assume he's in for this. I think you can take some chances on a few of these guys. If the Pelicans do go big again and put Jackson Hayes there a lot with J-Val, then Alperen Sengun at 4,100, who's had 2 back-to-back games over 23 fantasy points, becomes a little intriguing to me. If he can hit 30 minutes, then he's going to be a very good play here. Don't know if that'll happen, but there's a potential if they go big again against them and try and match. Christian Wood is averaging 41 points. Well, I shouldn't say averaging. Had 41 points in his lone meeting against these guys, 23 points, 8 boards. Not huge in them. I think I'd rather go Ingram or some other guys a little bit higher priced, like a Jaylen Brown, who we just mentioned, is in the 9Ks range. So I'd like him there. Jay Sean Tate, Eric Gordon, KJ Martin, Garrison Matthews. Those are the guys I'll be taking more chances on. If Kevin Porter Jr. is fully healthy too, and there's no lingering effects with that illness, I think he has some big potential here as well at only 5,700. So I'm going to leave Wood out, and I do like the other guys. Porter Jr., probably my first option if I need to hear the status. I know he's not on the injury report, but it's very weird. He just played 11 minutes a couple nights ago. So keep an eye on that. If no lingering effects, if he's just good to go, 5,700 would be my preferred play here, and one of my favorite plays of the night. Sengun, Gordon, Martin, and Matthews all make for solid punt play options here. I do prefer them in that specific order as well, but 4-1 to 3-7 is some solid value for these guys in the game that's projected for the highest total, and against two teams that like to give up some points, so you can see a lot of good fireworks here. Last game of the night, it's a late one, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have the Milwaukee Bucks taking on the Los Angeles Clippers. On the injury report, we have Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, Jay Scrubb all out, Ivica Zubac as questionable, and the Bucks have no injury report. They played last night. They are, again, one of the two teams on the back end of a back-to-back. George Hill, Brook Lopez should be out. And then this is very difficult because Giannis has been missing quite a few back-to-back games here, so not 100% sure if he will play this. The last time he played a back-to-back was the 7th and 8th against Brooklyn and Charlotte of January. Oh, I tongue-tied there. So he could play. He could not. Definitely something to keep an eye on, though. He did miss the last back-to-back that they had. With that said, if there is no Giannis, Middleton, Holiday come very much in play here. Even a Bobby Portis, the matchup is pretty solid for him. Those are the guys that I'd be looking at. And Pat Connaughton as a cheap dart throw play. Jordan Nwora might find himself in the starting lineup, but I think we have enough value that we don't have to go to him or even Connaughton or even DiVincenzo. I would stick more towards the top here. Specifically Middleton, Holiday, and a little bit of Portis here. If Giannis does play, Holiday still makes a lot of sense. It's going to be a solid matchup. And then probably more Middleton than Giannis here. I'd probably pay up towards a Luka if I had to put those two together. All right, on the other side of the ball, we have no Leonard. We have no George. We have possibly no Powell. We have possibly no Covington. They're not on the injury report for there, so they could make their debut. But it's far from a given if the trade has processed and they're ready to go. So keep an eye on both of those status if you can. Hopefully we get word early. And then he's Ivica Zubac. If Powell and or Covington are out, if it's just one of them, I really like the one that's playing because they're going to be thrown right into the fire immediately. Especially Powell. Would really like Powell here at 7K. If both of them are out, then yeah, a lot of your rotation is just still there. You have, I know you lost Bledsoe, so that does make Reggie Jackson's life a lot easier. He's going to be the main point guard. At 6,300, very much like that. Amir Coffey, 4,800, very solid value. Not Zubats, Ibaka at 4,700. If there's no Zubats, becomes very solid. The last two games, he's played a combined 56 minutes and has a combined over 70 fantasy points. So would definitely be in play if there's no Zubats. If there is a Zubats, I'm leaving him, Hartenstein, and Zubats himself, or Ibaka, whoever you think I was talking to at the moment. I'll leave all three of them out of it. I'm not going to have so much Morris exposure either. I do like Batum at 4,500. Terrence Mann is going to be the backup point guard now. So there should be more opportunity for him at 3,500. He hasn't really done much, so he'd be in play for me too. But a lot of it depends on Powell and Covington. If both those guys are in, then I'm going to scratch off the three centers mostly anyway. Scratch off Mann. Really don't want a ton of Batum. Probably just Powell and Jackson and Covington, those three. If they're both out or one of them's out, Coffey jumps back in. If Zubats is out, Ibaka's out. Is in play. So it's a lot to do with the injury report. Right now, Reggie Jackson is the one guy I can look at. All right, that does it for today's edition of DFS Today. Thank you as always for tuning in. We will catch you again tomorrow. I believe Harris and Mike will be back on for the Sunday show. Thank you as always. Good luck. Enjoy the weekend. Peace.
Did you know Amazon provides ways of working that fits your lifestyle? They know you value your time outside of work, juggling family, school, friends, or other activities. That's why they offer a variety of shifts that work for you. There are full-time, part-time, and even temporary opportunities that can work with your schedule. With great starting pay and sign-on bonuses, if you want a career that fits and adapts to your lifestyle, head to Amazon.com/apply. Amazon is a proud equal opportunity employer.